He needs a fake wife to cover his mother's eyes. But he's shocked because she's so beautiful. The early morning sun filtered through the misty Portland air as Avery Monroe arranged a bouquet of white lilies, her practiced hands moving with deliberate grace. The flower shop's worn wooden floors creaked beneath her feet as she shifted her weight, adjusting the stems until they formed a perfect cascade. Her hazel eyes narrowed in concentration, examining each petal for imperfections. "That perfect isn't paying the bills," she muttered to herself, glancing at the clock on the wall. 6:45 a.m. 15 minutes before opening time at Blooming Days, the suburban flower shop that had become her second home. Her fingers unconsciously snapped, a telltale sign of her rising anxiety as she mentally calculated this month's expenses. The shop's bell chimed unexpectedly, startling her from her thoughts. A delivery man appeared with boxes of fresh inventory, his clipboard extended expectantly. Avery quickly signed, her ponytail swinging as she bent to examine the contents. Fresh roses, carnations, and baby's breath, the standard arsenal for Portland's romantic aspirations. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Sage. "Forgot lunch money." Again. "Sorry." Avery closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and replied with a simple "I'll transfer it." Another unexpected expense, another adjustment to make. Her sister's apologetic emoji string followed, each little face a stab of guilt. At 15, Sage shouldn't have to worry about lunch money, but here they were. The morning proceeded with its usual rhythm, arranging displays, processing orders, helping customers select the perfect blooms for their occasions. Each sale brought a small sense of accomplishment, though the mental calculator in her head never stopped running. "These are for my wife's birthday," an elderly gentleman said, pointing to a vibrant arrangement of purple irises. 45 years together. Avery smiled, genuine warmth breaking through her professional facade. "She must be special." "The most special," he replied, his weathered face softening. "That's when you find the right one. You just know." She wrapped the flowers carefully, adding an extra iris for good measure. Love like that seemed like a fairy tale, beautiful to witness but too fragile to touch. Her own experiences with relationships had taught her that dependency was a luxury she couldn't afford. The afternoon sun was beginning to cast long shadows when her phone pinged with a delivery notification. A hospital order. Good tips, usually. As she prepared to close the shop for her evening delivery shift, her co-worker arrived to take over. "You're doing too much," he said, watching her change into her delivery gear. "Just enough," Avery corrected, securing her helmet. Her used bicycle waited outside, faithful despite its rust spots and squeaking chain. The delivery bag on her back felt heavy with more than just flowers. Portland General Hospital loomed ahead, its windows reflecting the dying sunlight. The delivery was for the cardiac wing, a get-well-soon arrangement ordered by someone named Morgan. Simple enough. The elevator ride to the 6th floor gave her time to check her appearance in the mirrored walls. Her dark skin looked tired under the fluorescent lights, but her uniform was neat, her name tag straight, professional, reliable, the mask she wore as comfortably as her own skin. Room 612 proved empty, except for an elderly woman sleeping peacefully, monitors beeping steadily beside her. Avery placed the flowers quietly on the bedside table, arranging them so they'd be visible when the patient woke. "Those aren't from the gift shop," the voice startled her. A tall man stood in the doorway, his presence commanding immediate attention. His grey-blue eyes assessed her with clinical precision, his blonde hair perfectly styled, despite the late hour. His white coat and name badge identified him as Dr. Thatcher. "No," Avery replied, straightening. "External delivery, ordered by Morgan. That would be me. Elias Morgan Thatcher." He stepped closer, examining the arrangement. "They're adequate." Avery bristled at his tone. "They're perfect for the occasion. Unless you'd prefer something else, Doctor." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps? At her directness, he checked his watch, a gesture she suspected was more habit than necessity. "No, they're fine." He paused, then added unexpectedly, "My mother loves gardenias. Next time, order those instead of criticizing someone else's choice," Avery suggested, turning to leave. She had 3 more deliveries waiting, and this man's expensive watch probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Wait," His voice stopped her at the door. "I apologize. That was unnecessary of me. It's been a long day." Avery looked back, really seeing him this time. Beyond the perfectly pressed shirt and authoritative stance, she noticed the slight slump of his shoulders, the faint shadows under his eyes. A man carrying his own weight of responsibilities. "Long days are all I know," she replied, softer now. "Hope your mother likes the flowers, Dr. Thatcher." As she walked away, she could feel his eyes following her. But she had more deliveries to make, more bills to pay, more responsibilities waiting at home. One strange encounter with a demanding doctor wasn't going to change her routine, but later that night, as she pressed a dried rose between the pages of her favorite book, she found herself thinking about the way his confidence had cracked, just for a moment. How beneath his pristine exterior, there might be someone who understood what it meant to carry the weight of others' expectations. She closed the book firmly. Tomorrow would bring another day of flowers, deliveries, and keeping her world from falling apart. Romance was a luxury she couldn't afford, and men like Dr. Thatcher lived in a different universe entirely. Besides, she had enough thorns in her life without adding a rose that would never bloom. Elias Morgan Thatcher stood in the hospital's observation room, watching his mother's EKG monitor through the glass. Each beat reminded him of time slipping away, like sand through an hourglass he couldn't control. His fingers absently traced the scar on his left eyebrow, a nervous habit he'd developed over the years. "The latest results aren't promising," Dr. Kumar, his colleague, said quietly. "The valve replacement might be more complicated than we initially thought." Elias paced the small room, his expensive shoes clicking against the floor. "Show me the scans again. You know you're not supposed to be involved in her case." "I'm not asking as her doctor." His voice carried an edge that made Dr. Kumar sigh and hand over the tablet. The images confirmed what he already knew. His mother's heart was failing. The same heart that had hardened against him after his father's death was now struggling to keep beating. Irony had never tasted so bitter. A nurse entered his mother's room, checking vitals and adjusting medication. Through the glass, Elias watched his mother stir, her eyes opening slowly. The flowers he'd ordered yesterday, the ones delivered by that intriguing florist, still sat on her bedside table, their petals catching the morning light. "You should talk to her," Dr. Kumar suggested. "Not as a doctor, as her son." Elias checked his watch. 7:43 a.m. His first surgery wasn't until 9. "I know." The walk to his mother's room felt longer than usual. Each step carried the weight of unspoken words and missed opportunities. He paused at the doorway, straightening his already immaculate tie. "It's good morning, Mother." Catherine Thatcher turned her head slightly, her silver hair framing a face that still commanded respect even from a hospital bed. Elias, always so formal. He moved to sit in the chair beside her bed, maintaining the careful distance they'd perfected over the years. "How are you feeling?" "Like my son is avoiding telling me something." Her eyes, the same grey-blue as his own, studied him carefully. "The nurses whisper when they think I'm sleeping. It's worse than before, isn't it?" Elias stood again, walking to the window. Portland's skyline stretched before him, a maze of buildings and morning fog. "We're exploring all options." Still hiding behind medical terminology, she sighed. "Just like your father used to do." The comparison stung. Elias turned back, his jaw tight. "I'm nothing like him." "No?" Catherine's laugh was soft but pointed. The same dedication to work, the same emotional distance, the same empty home waiting at night. "I'm not having this conversation again." "When will you?" "When I'm gone." She gestured weakly at the monitors surrounding her. "At least your father had someone who loved him. Who will be there for you, Elias?" The words hit their mark with surgical precision. Elias felt his carefully constructed control beginning to crack. "I'm not alone, really." His mother's skepticism was palpable. "When was the last time you even went on a date?" "I'm married." The lie escaped before he could stop it, hanging in the air between them like a suspended heartbeat. His mother's eyes widened, the monitors showing a slight spike in her heart rate. "Married? Since when?" Elias's mind raced. He could take it back, admit the truth. But seeing the first spark of real life in his mother's eyes in days made him continue the deception. "Recently, we wanted to keep it private." "Private?" Catherine's voice strengthened with indignation. "You got married without telling your own mother?" He moved closer to her bed, his medical training screaming at him to keep her calm. "We didn't want to worry you with the excitement, given your condition. What's her name? What does she do? Why haven't I met her?" Each question felt like another nail in the coffin of his lie. Elias checked his watch again, 8:15 a.m. "I have surgery soon. You need to rest. Don't you dare leave this room without telling me about my daughter-in-law." The monitors beeped insistently, reflecting his mother's agitation. Elias found himself inventing details, pulling from some desperate corner of his mind. "She's different from anyone I've ever known. Strong, independent." The image of the florist from yesterday flashed in his mind, her direct gaze, her quiet dignity. "She works with flowers." His mother's expression softened. "Flowers? Like the ones you brought yesterday?" "Yes." Elias seized the coincidence like a lifeline. "Exactly like those. I want to meet her. Mother, you need to focus on your recovery." "I'm dying, Elias." The bluntness of her statement made him flinch. "We both know it. And I want to meet the woman who managed to break through that wall you built around yourself." The silence that followed was deafening. Elias stared at the flowers on the bedside table, their perfection mocking his lies. How had he backed himself into this corner? "1 week," Catherine continued. "Give me 1 week with both of you. That's all I'm asking." Elias's pager buzzed, a reminder of his upcoming surgery. "We'll discuss this later." "Promise me, Elias." His mother's voice carried a desperation he'd never heard before. "Promise me I'll meet her." Looking at her fragile form in the hospital bed, Elias felt something inside him break. "I promise." He left the room quickly, his mind already spinning with possibilities and problems. In the elevator, he pressed his forehead against the cool metal wall, his reflection showing a man on the verge of unraveling. The lie had seemed simple in the moment, a way to give his mother peace, to show her he wasn't the emotional failure she thought he was. But now it had grown into something uncontrollable, like a cancer spreading through his carefully ordered life. He needed a wife, for 1 week, someone who could play the role convincingly enough to satisfy his mother's scrutiny, someone who understood the delicate nature of the situation, someone who wouldn't get emotionally involved. The elevator doors opened, and Elias straightened his posture, his professional mask sliding back into place. He had lives to save today, surgeries to perform, but beneath his composed exterior, his mind kept returning to a pair of hazel eyes and the quiet strength they held. Perhaps the solution to his problem had already delivered herself to his door, wrapped in the guise of a simple flower delivery. Rain pelted against the windows of blooming days as Avery finished the day's receipts. The afternoon crowd had thinned, leaving behind scattered leaves and wet footprints on the wooden floor. She massaged her temples, trying to ward off an approaching headache. The numbers weren't adding up the way she needed them to. Her phone vibrated with a message from Sage. "Got cast in the school play. Lead role." A smile broke through Avery's exhaustion. "That's amazing. We'll celebrate tonight." "Pizza," came the hopeful reply. Avery glanced at her bank account balance. "Sure, you earned it." She'd figure out how to make it work. She always did. The shop's bell chimed, and Avery looked up, ready to inform the late customer they were closing. The words died in her throat. Dr. Elias Morgan Thatcher stood in the doorway, his pristine appearance somehow unmarred by the Portland rain. His presence seemed to shrink the modest shop around him. "We're closed," she said, more sharply than intended. "I know." He closed his umbrella, placing it carefully in the stand by the door. "I need to speak with you. The hospital has my delivery number if—" "This isn't about a delivery." He glanced around the empty shop. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" Warning bells rang in Avery's mind. "Herte, whatever you need to say, you can say it here." Elias paced a small circle, checking his watch. The gesture reminded her of their first meeting. "I have a proposition for you. A business arrangement. I'm not interested in investing opportunities. I need you to pretend to be my wife." The statement hung in the air like suspended rain. Avery stared at him, waiting for the punchline. None came. "Excuse me." Elias ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect style. "My mother is dying. Yesterday, I told her I was married, to someone who works with flowers." Understanding dawned. "And you thought of me because I delivered those flowers?" "Yes." He stopped pacing, facing her directly. I need someone to play the role for 7 days. I'm willing to compensate you generously. Avery laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're insane. I'm desperate. The admission seemed to cost him something. She wants to meet my wife before... He swallowed hard. The doctors give her 2 months at best. And you think lying to her is the solution? I think giving her peace is the solution. His composure cracked slightly. She believes I'm alone, empty, like my father. Avery moved to the counter, needing the physical barrier between them. And that's not my problem. $20,000. Her hand stilled on the counter. What? For 7 days, playing the role of my wife, attending a few dinners, answering some questions. He stepped closer. That's all I'm asking. $20,000. Enough to keep Sage in school with no worries. Enough for a down payment on a small business loan. Enough to breathe. No. She turned away, busying herself with organizing already neat flowers. I don't do lies. 30,000. Avery's fingers trembled on a rose stem. Stop. I've seen the way you check your phone, calculating every expense. His voice was softer now, more dangerous. The worn shoes, the used bicycle, the worry in your eyes when you think no one's looking. She spun to face him. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. He pulled out his phone, showing her a banking app. Half now, half when it's done. No strings attached. The amount glowed on the screen, taunting her. Sage's excited message about the play echoed in her mind. Her sister deserved costumes that fit, pizza celebrations, a chance to just be a teenager. Why me? You're intelligent, dignified, and capable of understanding the delicate nature of this situation. He paused. And you need the money as much as I need the help. Avery closed her eyes, feeling the weight of years of responsibility pressing down on her. 7 days. That's all. And then we never see each other again. Correct? She opened her eyes, studying him. Beyond his confident exterior, she saw something familiar. The desperate need to keep someone else's world from falling apart. I have conditions, she said finally. Relief flickered across his face. Name them. I need everything in writing, a contract that protects both of us. She held up her hand as he started to speak. I have a 15-year-old sister who depends on me. I need to know this won't somehow blow back on her. Done. I keep my job here. We work around my schedule. Acceptable. And I need to know the story you've told your mother. Every detail. She met his gaze steadily. I won't be caught in a lie because you forgot to tell me something important. Elias nodded, pulling out a business card and placing it on the counter. My lawyer can have the paperwork ready tomorrow morning. We can meet at my office to discuss the details. Avery picked up the card, the expensive cardstock feeling foreign between her fingers. This is crazy. Sometimes crazy is necessary. He moved toward the door, then paused. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Dr. Thatcher. You might regret this arrangement more than I do. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. If we're going to be married, you should probably call me Elias. The bell chimed as he left, the rain swallowing his figure into the grey Portland evening. Avery sank onto her stool, the business card burning in her hand like a ticket to another world. Her phone buzzed again. Sage, can we get extra cheese? Avery looked at the empty shop, at her worn reflection in the window, at the place where Elias had stood offering escape from her daily struggles. Extra cheese and wings, she typed back. It's a special occasion. She tucked the business card into her pocket, already feeling the weight of the lie she'd agreed to carry. 7 days pretending to be someone else. 7 days in a world she didn't belong in. 7 days that could change everything, or break what little stability she had left. The rain continued to fall, washing away her last chances to change her mind. Elias's office at Portland Medical Center occupied a corner of the cardiac wing's administrative floor. Avery sat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, feeling out of place in her floral work shirt and jeans. The lawyer, Mr. Bennett, spread documents across the polished mahogany surface while Elias paced near the window. The non-disclosure agreement is standard, Mr. Bennett explained, his voice as crisp as his bow tie. It protects both parties and extends indefinitely beyond the 7-day period. Avery skimmed the papers, her finger tracing each line. And this prevents him from holding the money over me later. The payment structure is clear. $15,000 now. 15,000 upon completion. No additional obligations or expectations. She glanced at Elias, who had finally stopped pacing. What about your mother? Does she have any influence over your finances? No, Elias replied. My assets are entirely separate from hers. Mr. Bennett cleared his throat. Thus, there's also a clause about maintaining the appearance of a legitimate marriage, public displays of affection, shared meals, coordinated stories. We need to discuss those, Avery interrupted. I can't agree to anything without knowing exactly what I'm walking into. Elias nodded to Mr. Bennett, who gathered his papers and left the office. Once the door closed, Elias took the seat beside Avery rather than behind his desk. Claire, my mother believes we've been married for 3 months, he began. A small private ceremony. No photos because we wanted to wait until she was well enough for a proper celebration. How did we meet? I haven't specified. I thought we could build that part together. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. It needs to be believable enough for questions, but not so complicated. We trip over details. Avery twisted her fingers together, then caught herself and stopped. The flower shop. It's simple. Verifiable. You came in for gardenias, Elias finished, for my mother's birthday 6 months ago. You remembered my suggestions about the flowers. Asked me to coffee. A small cafe near the hospital. You were reluctant at first. Avery smiled despite herself. Because you seemed arrogant and too perfectly put together. But you saw past that. His voice softened slightly. Saw that I was just trying to keep everything under control. Their eyes met briefly before both looked away. The story was taking shape, weaving truth with fiction until the lines blurred. What changed your mind about me? Elias asked. Avery thought for a moment. You brought soup to the shop when I had a cold. Not fancy restaurant soup, homemade. Said your grandmother's recipe could cure anything. That's oddly specific. Details make lies believable, she shrugged. Plus, it shows a side of you your mother would want to see, the caretaker beneath the surgeon. Elias studied her with new interest. You're good at this. I'm good at understanding people. She stood, needing to move. Which is why we need to address the physical aspects of this arrangement. The contract specifies maintaining appearances, but we need rules. She faced him directly. What are you comfortable with? Elias stood as well, his height more noticeable in the confined space. Hand-holding, arms linked, nothing inappropriate. Agreed. And pet names. God, no. Your mother won't find that strange. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Avery was beginning to recognize as a sign of stress. Fine, but nothing excessive. Dear at most. What about our living situation? She'll ask. My condo. I'll have the guest room prepared for you. Avery crossed her arms. And Sage? There's a second guest room. She's welcome to stay. No. Avery's tone left no room for argument. She stays in our apartment. This situation is complicated enough without dragging her into it. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Kumar entered, looking between them with curiosity. Sorry to interrupt, but your mother's asking for you. Elias, both of you. Panic flashed across Elias's face. Now. She's quite insistent. Avery stepped forward before Elias could respond. Could you give us 15 minutes? I need to change into something more appropriate. Dr. Kumar smiled knowingly. Of course. Room 612 when you're ready. After he left, Elias turned to Avery. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She pulled a small duffel bag from beneath her chair. I came prepared. Your mother is dying, and you're paying me well to make this convincing. So let me do my job. She slipped into his private bathroom, emerging minutes later in a simple navy dress that hugged her curves modestly. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and subtle makeup enhanced her natural beauty. The transformation wasn't dramatic, but it was enough. Elias stared a moment too long before saying, You didn't have to. First impressions matter. She smoothed her dress, especially with mothers. He offered his arm, the gesture stiff but proper. Ready? One more thing. Avery reached into her bag and pulled out 2 simple gold bands. We can't meet your mother without these. Elias took the smaller ring, examining it. You thought of everything. They're plated, not real gold. I have my limits. She held out her left hand. But they'll do for 7 days. His fingers were warm as he slipped the ring onto her finger. The metal felt foreign, like a promise she had no right to make. When she placed the matching band on his hand, she noticed a slight tremor in his usually steady surgeon's fingers. "I remember," she said softly, "we're in love. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but comfortably, like people who choose each other every day." Elias's eyes met hers, something vulnerable crossing his expression. "How do you know so much about love when you don't believe in it?" "I believe in it," Avery corrected, adjusting his collar slightly. "I just don't believe it's meant for me." They walked to his mother's room in silence, their footsteps synchronizing naturally. Just before the door, Elias squeezed her hand, whether to reassure her or himself. Avery wasn't sure. "Last chance to back out," he whispered. Avery straightened her shoulders and put on her most genuine smile. "We're already wearing the rings, dear." The door opened, and they stepped into the performance of their lives. But as Catherine Thatcher's face lit up at the sight of them, Avery felt the first crack in her carefully constructed walls. 7 days. She could pretend to be loved for 7 days. The real danger would be remembering it wasn't real. Catherine Thatcher's hospital room felt different in the afternoon light. The medical equipment hummed softly, creating a backdrop to the steady beeping of monitors. As Avery entered beside Elias, she felt the weight of Catherine's scrutiny immediately. "So," Catherine said, her voice stronger than Avery expected, "you're the woman who married my son without telling me." Elias's hand tightened on Avery's, but she stepped forward with a warm smile. "I'm Avery Monroe Thatcher, though I suppose I should have been Avery Thatcher Monroe, given how particular your son is about order." The joke landed perfectly. Catherine's stern expression softened slightly as she glanced at Elias. He arranged his toy cars by color even as a child. "And now his ties," Avery added, remembering the perfectly organized closet she'd glimpsed in his office. "Though he claims it's efficiency, not compulsion." "It is efficiency," Elias muttered, but his posture relaxed slightly. Catherine gestured to the chairs beside her bed. "Sit, both of you. I have questions." As they settled into the chairs, Avery noticed the fresh worry lines around Elias's eyes. She reached over and smoothed his collar, a gesture that seemed to surprise both of them with its intimacy. "How did you meet?" Catherine asked, watching them closely. "Your birthday gardenias," Avery replied smoothly, "though your son initially wanted roses." "Roses are classic," Elias defended. "Roses are safe," Avery corrected, the banter feeling surprisingly natural. "Gardenias mean secret love and joy. They also happen to be your favorite." Catherine's eyes widened. "You remembered that detail, Elias." "He remembers everything about you," Avery said softly. "He just doesn't always know how to show it." The silence that followed felt heavy with unspoken emotions. Catherine reached for her water glass, and Elias immediately moved to help her. His movements were clinical, precise, a doctor caring for a patient. "Let me," Avery intervened, taking the glass from him. She adjusted Catherine's pillows with practiced ease, helping her drink in a way that preserved her dignity. "My sister went through a rough bout of pneumonia last year. You never forget how to make someone comfortable." "You have a sister?" Catherine asked. "Sage. She's 15. All attitude and purple hair, but brilliant." "Sage and Avery," Catherine mused. "Your parents must love herbs." "My mother loved the idea of unique names." Avery kept her tone light, though I think she ran out of creativity after us. "And your father?" "He ran out long before that." Avery felt Elias shift beside her, recognizing the truth in her words. "But we made our own family, Sage and I." Catherine studied her for a long moment. "And now you're part of ours, though I'm still hurt I wasn't told about the wedding." "That was my fault," Elias interjected. "I wanted to wait until you were stronger." "We both did," Avery added, seeing Catherine's skepticism. "But perhaps we were wrong. Family shouldn't be kept waiting." "No," Catherine agreed. "It shouldn't." She turned to Elias. "Show me your rings." Avery's heart skipped as Elias held out his left hand. The fake gold band caught the light, looking deceptively real. "Simple," Catherine observed. "Like their meaning," Avery said, twisting her own ring. "A circle has no beginning or end. It doesn't need embellishment to be significant." Catherine's expression softened further. "You sound like a romantic. I sound like someone who values substance over style." Avery glanced at Elias. Shatho, your son is teaching me to appreciate both. A nurse entered with medication, and Avery recognized their cue to leave. As they stood, Catherine caught her hand. Come back tomorrow, both of you. Of course, Avery promised, squeezing the fragile hand gently. I'll bring fresh flowers, not roses. In the hallway, Elias led them to a quiet alcove before speaking. That was impressive. I told you I understand people. Avery leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. Your mother needs more than medical care. She needs to know you'll be okay. I am okay. No, you're surviving. There's a difference. She straightened his tie again, the gesture becoming habitual. When was the last time you really talked to her about anything other than her condition? Elias stepped back slightly. We should discuss tomorrow's schedule. The nurses change shifts at... Stop! Avery's voice was firm but gentle. This isn't just about convincing her we're married. It's about giving her peace. That means you have to let her see you, really see you. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. She gathered her bag, checking her phone for messages from Sage. I'm asking you to be human, to be a son, to give her memories that aren't tainted by machines and medical terms. I'm paying you to play a role, not be my therapist. You're paying me to make this convincing. Avery met his gaze steadily. And nothing is more convincing than truth. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Where did you learn to make someone comfortable like that? When you've been taking care of others your whole life, you learn to read what they need. She didn't turn back. Sometimes it's medicine, sometimes it's dignity, sometimes it's just knowing they're not alone. The elevator arrived, but before she stepped in, she added, Your mother doesn't need a perfect son, Elias. She just needs her son. The doors closed on his troubled expression. Avery leaned against the elevator wall, her own words echoing in her mind. She'd meant to keep this professional, distant. Instead, she found herself invested in healing a relationship she had no right to fix. Her phone buzzed, Sage asking about dinner, real life calling her back. She glanced at the fake ring on her finger, remembering how Catherine had looked at it, how Elias's hand had trembled slightly as he'd held hers. 7 days to convince everyone of a love that didn't exist. But as the elevator descended, Avery wondered if the real deception wasn't the marriage, but the pretense that hearts could stay uninvolved in such an intimate charade. The doors opened to the lobby, and she stepped back into her real world. Behind her, somewhere in the cardiac wing, a mother dreamed of her son's happiness, and a man stood in an alcove, perhaps realizing that some performances required more truth than fiction. And somewhere between these worlds, Avery's carefully constructed walls began to show their first cracks. Elias's condo occupied the top floor of a sleek high-rise overlooking Portland's Pearl District. As the elevator ascended, Avery watched the city lights emerge like stars against the darkening sky. Her small duffel bag felt heavier with each floor. The guest room is prepared, Elias said, breaking the silence that had followed them from the hospital. The housekeeper stocked the bathroom with everything you might need. The elevator opened directly into his foyer, all clean lines, modern art, and cool grays. Avery's footsteps echoed on the marble floors as she followed him inside. Your mother will expect me to know this place, she said, taking in the space, to be comfortable here. Then we should give you a tour. He set his keys in a silver dish by the door, precise, organized, everything in its place. The living room stretched before them, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city skyline. Minimalist furniture in shades of grey and blue created a space that looked more like a magazine spread than a home. You don't spend much time here, do you? Avery asked, noting the pristine surfaces, the absence of personal touches. I'm usually at the hospital. It shows. She moved to a single-framed photo on the mantel, Elias in surgical scrubs, receiving some kind of award. No family photos. They're complicated. Everything about family is complicated. She turned to face him. But your mother will ask about photos, about memories we've made here. Elias loosened his tie, a rare display of casual behavior. What do you suggest? First, we need to make this place look lived in by both of us. She set her bag down, scanning the room. Small touches, a throw blanket that's slightly rumpled, a book on the coffee table with a bookmark. You've thought about this. I think about details. She pulled a worn paperback from her bag. May I? He nodded, watching as she placed the book on the pristine coffee table, angling it slightly. The small imperfection in his perfect space made him twitch. "The kitchen," she prompted. He led her through an archway, into a chef's kitchen that looked barely used. Stainless steel appliances gleamed under recessed lighting. "Let me guess," Avery said, opening the refrigerator. "You order in." "I cook?" He sounded defensive. "When I have time." The refrigerator told a different story. Containers of prepared meals, bottles of water, nothing personal. Avery closed it with a sigh. "Tomorrow morning, I'm bringing groceries. Real food, things a wife would buy." She opened cupboards, mentally cataloguing. "Your mother might want to visit once she's stronger. Everything needs to feel authentic." "You're very thorough. I'm very aware of how easily lies fall apart." She found a tea kettle, filling it with water. "Do you mind? It helps me think." He gestured permission, watching as she moved through his kitchen with growing familiarity. The domestic scene felt foreign in his carefully controlled space. "The bedroom?" she asked, setting 2 mugs on the counter. Aaliyah stiffened. "You'll be in the guest room." "Yes, but I need to know the master bedroom, know which side of the bed would be mine, know where I'd keep my things." The kettle whistled, and she poured hot water over tea bags. "These are details people notice." He led her down a hallway, hesitating at the last door. The master bedroom matched the rest of the condo, impersonal, pristine, lonely. A king-sized bed dominated the space, its grey duvet military precise. "Left side," he said quietly. "What? You'd sleep on the left side?" "I prefer the right." Avery moved to the left nightstand, setting her tea down. "Then this would be mine." She pulled a small photo from her bag, her and Sage at the coast, laughing in the wind. "A wife would keep this here." Elias picked up the photo, studying it. "When was this taken?" "Last summer." Sage had just dyed her hair purple for the first time. Avery smiled at the memory. "Our mom had a rare good day. We drove to the coast, ate cheap fish and chips, forgot about everything else for a while." "You don't talk about your mother much." "Neither do you." She took the photo back, placing it carefully on the nightstand. "Some wounds are better left undiscussed." A comfortable silence fell between them as they sipped their tea. Avery moved to the window, watching the city lights flicker like earthbound stars. "What else?" Elias asked. What other details would make this convincing?" Avery turned, really looking at him. In the soft evening light, his perfect facade seemed to slip slightly. "When did you last eat?" What time is it?" "That's what I thought." She headed back to the kitchen, him trailing behind. "A wife wouldn't let you skip meals." "You don't have to." "I'm not cooking for you," she interrupted, pulling out her phone. "I'm establishing patterns, creating memories." She dialed a number from memory. "Plus, I'm hungry, and you're paying for all this anyway." 30 minutes later, they sat at his sleek dining table with containers of Thai food between them. Avery had insisted on real plates, real silverware. "Tell me about the hospital," she said, serving him green curry. "Not the medical side, the people, the stories I should know." Between bites, he told her about Doctor, Kumar's horrible jokes, about the nurse who always hummed Broadway tunes during rounds, about the cafeteria worker who saved him extra pudding cups during long surgeries. "You notice more than you let on," Avery observed. "I notice everything. It's necessary in surgery. But you keep everyone at a distance," says the woman who deflects personal questions with practiced ease. Their eyes met across the table, recognition flickering between them. Two people who'd built their lives around keeping others at arm's length, now forced into an intimacy neither had expected. "Your mother will ask about our first kiss," Avery said suddenly. Elias choked slightly on his curry. "What?" "Mothers ask these things. We need a story." She pushed her food around her plate. "Something sweet, but not dramatic. Something that feels real." "The coffee shop," he said after a moment. "After you finally agreed to a real date." "It was raining. It's always raining in Portland. You had flowers in your hair from work." Avery found herself drawn into the fiction. "You walked me to my bike, insisted on calling me a ride instead. You refused, stubborn as always." "I started to ride away." She looked up, caught in his gaze. "But you called my name. You turned back," he continued softly. "The rain was getting heavier. You stepped closer, water dripping from your perfect hair. And I kissed you. His voice dropped lower, softly, like a question. The fantasy hung between them, almost tangible in the evening light. Avery broke first, standing to clear the plates. "That'll work," she said briskly. Simple, believable, romantic enough to satisfy a mother's curiosity. Elias checked his watch, a nervous gesture she was beginning to recognize. "So I should review some patient files. And I should call Sage." Avery gathered her tea mug. "Thank you for dinner. Thank you for—" He gestured vaguely at the space around them, now subtly changed by her presence. In the guest room, Avery sat on the edge of the too-perfect bed, her fingers tracing the fake ring on her left hand. Outside her door, she heard Elias's footsteps pause briefly before continuing down the hall. 7 days. She had to remember that. 7 days of pretense, of careful lies, of walking the line between real and fake. But as she changed for bed, she couldn't help but notice that her paperback on his coffee table, her photo on the nightstand, her tea mug in his sink, they didn't look out of place at all. They looked like they belonged. And that, she realized as she drifted off to sleep in a stranger's home, was the most dangerous lie of all. Dawn crept through Portland's perpetual clouds. As Avery moved quietly through Elias's kitchen, she'd woken early, driven by habit and the strange feeling of sleeping in an unfamiliar bed. The grocery bag she'd brought in sat on the counter, waiting to transform this sterile space into something lived in. The coffee maker hummed to life under her touch, and she smiled at the thought of Elias's surprise when he'd find it already programmed with his preferred settings. She'd noticed the exact time marked on his coffee maker yesterday, 6:15 a.m. Even his caffeine intake was precisely scheduled. "You're up early." She turned to find Elias in the kitchen doorway, already dressed in surgical scrubs beneath his white coat. His hair was perfectly styled, but something about his expression seemed softer in the morning light. "A wife would know how you take your coffee," she said, reaching for a mug. "Black, no sugar, served exactly at 6:15, they said in unison. A ghost of a smile touched his lips as he accepted the mug. "You notice details too. It's part of the job." She turned back to the groceries, unpacking fresh vegetables and fruits. Both jobs, actually. Flowers and this being, playing the perfect wife. She arranged apples in a bowl, a casual display that spoke of domestic life. "Your mother's being discharged today?" "Yes. Home care is arranged, but she insisted on having dinner here first." He watched her move through his kitchen, "with both of us." Avery paused in arranging herbs on the windowsill. "Here? Tonight? Is that a problem?" "No. It's—" she chose her words carefully. "An opportunity, but we need to be prepared." "What time is her discharge?" 2 p.m. "I have surgeries until noon, then—" "I'll be there." She checked her phone. "I can move some deliveries around, take a late lunch." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." She faced him fully. "Your mother needs to see us together, supporting each other. It's what she wants most, to know you won't be alone." Something flickered in his eyes. Vulnerability, perhaps, or recognition, but his pager buzzed before he could respond. "Early rounds," he said, setting down his half-finished coffee. "I'll see you at 2. I'll bring flowers." "Not roses," she added with a small smile. After he left, Avery continued transforming the space. Fresh bread in the bread box, seasonal fruits arranged just so, herbs growing in the window, small touches that suggested shared meals and morning routines. She placed a shopping list on the refrigerator, written in her flowing script, "Need more coffee. Your favorite tea running low." Her phone chimed with a text from Sage. "Everything okay? Weird not having you home." "All fine," Avery replied. "Just busy with work. See you for lunch." "Can't. Drama club meeting? Big news?" Avery smiled, even as worry gnawed at her. She was missing pieces of her sister's life for this charade, but the money would secure Sage's future, their future. 7 days of absence versus years of stability. The math was simple, even if the emotions weren't. At 1:45 p.m., Avery entered the hospital through the main entrance, a bouquet of fresh gardenias in her arms. She'd changed into a simple blue dress that suggested professional comfort rather than trying too hard. The fake ring caught the fluorescent light as she pressed the elevator button. Dr. Kumar was waiting outside Catherine's room. "Mrs. Thatcher Monroe," he greeted, with a knowing smile. "Or is it Monroe Thatcher?" "Just Avery is fine," She studied his expression. Is everything okay? Catherine's numbers are good, but he glanced around before continuing quietly. She's been asking questions about you and Elias, about why no one at the hospital knew he was married. Avery's heart skipped, but her face remained calm. We're private people. And Elias, he likes to keep his personal and professional lives separate. Very separate, apparently. Before she could respond, Elias emerged from his mother's room. His eyes found Avery immediately, relief washing over his features. You're here, he said, then noticed the flowers. Gardenias, your mother's favorite. She handed him the bouquet, using the moment to squeeze his hand reassuringly. How is she? Ready to escape, according to her. His thumb brushed across her knuckles before releasing her hand. So she's asking for you? Catherine was sitting up in bed, already dressed in comfortable clothes rather than a hospital gown. Her silver hair had been neatly styled, and some color had returned to her cheeks. Finally, she said, as Avery entered, someone who won't treat me like I'm made of glass. Good thing, Avery replied, moving to help adjust her pillows. I'm because we have a dinner to prepare for, and I need your advice. My advice? On Elias's favorite childhood meals. Avery sat beside the bed, ignoring Elias's startled look. I want tonight to be special. Catherine's eyes lit up. He always loved my chicken pot pie, though he'd never admit it now, too simple for his refined tastes. Mother, Elias protested. Am I wrong? Catherine challenged. When was the last time you ate something that wasn't perfectly portioned and nutritionally balanced? Last night, Avery answered for him. Thai food. He still can't handle spicy curry. The genuine surprise on Catherine's face made Avery's heart ache. How long had it been since mother and son really talked about ordinary things? Tell me more, Catherine pressed. What else has my son revealed to you that he keeps from his mother? Avery caught Elias's eye, saw the tension in his shoulders. He talks about you, she said softly, about learning to cook at your kitchen counter, about the time he burned the Thanksgiving turkey trying to prove he could do it alone. You were 12, Catherine remembered, her voice warming, so determined to be grown up. I was arrogant, Elias admitted, moving closer to the bed. You were independent, like your father. Catherine reached for his hand. But unlike him, you found someone who reminds you it's okay to need people sometimes. The moment felt too raw, too real. Avery stood, gathering her bag. I should start dinner preparations. Chicken pot pie takes time to do right. You don't have to, Elias began. Yes, I do. She kissed his cheek, the gesture practiced but gentle. Family takes care of each other. In the hallway, she pressed her forehead against the cool wall, breathing deeply. The line between performance and reality was blurring dangerously. She'd meant to create a convincing show of marriage, but instead found herself healing wounds she had no right to touch. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Sage. Mom called, asked for money again. Reality crashed back. Avery straightened, squaring her shoulders. 7 days. She was here for 7 days, playing a role, earning the money that would keep her real family safe and stable. But as she headed to the store to buy ingredients for Elias's childhood favorite meal, she couldn't shake the feeling that some performances cut too close to the heart, and some lies, told softly enough, began to feel like truth. The aroma of baking chicken pot pie filled Elias's condo, transforming the sterile space into something warm and inviting. Avery moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, her hair pulled back in a loose bun, flour dusting her apron. She'd ignored Elias's suggestion to have the dinner catered, insisting that authenticity mattered. Something smells wonderful, Catherine said from the doorway, where Elias helped her settle into a wheelchair. Despite her protests, she'd agreed to use it for the evening. Mother's recipe, Avery replied, wiping her hands on her apron. Though I'm sure it won't be quite the same. You flour the butter before mixing it in, Catherine observed, watching Avery work, just like I taught Elias. He mentioned it. Avery shot Elias a warm glance, though he claims he's too busy to bake anymore. Surgery doesn't leave much time for cooking, Elias said, but his eyes lingered on the domestic scene before him, 2 women who meant so much to him, one by blood and one by... What, exactly? Nonsense, Catherine declared. Your father was chief of surgery and still made time for family dinners. She paused, realizing what she'd said. Well, for a while, at least. Tension crept into the room. Avery saw Elias's shoulders stiffen, his jaw tighten. Before the silence could grow heavy, her phone buzzed with a text. "Excuse me," she said, checking the message. Her face fell slightly as she read it. "Everything okay?" Elias asked, genuine concern in his voice. "Just Sage. Mum's causing problems again." She tried to keep her tone light, but worry crept in. "I should call her." "Go," Catherine urged. "Family matters shouldn't wait." Avery stepped into the guest room, closing the door softly before dialing Sage's number. "What happened?" "Mom showed up at school." Sage's voice crackled through the phone, completely wasted. "I made a scene in the office." Avery closed her eyes, leaning against the wall. "Are you okay? Do you need me to—" "I handled it. Called a rideshare for her, sent her home, but—" Sage's voice wavered. "The drama teacher saw everything, right before callbacks for the play." "Oh, honey." Avery's heart ached. "Your talent is what matters, not Mom's behavior." "Easy for you to say. You're off playing house with some rich doctor while I'm dealing with real life." The word stung. "Sage, that's not fair. Everything I'm doing is for me, I know." Sage sighed. "I'm sorry. I miss you. I miss you too. This is temporary, I promise." "Whatever. I have homework. Just don't forget about your real family while you're pretending with this one." The call ended, leaving Avery with a hollow feeling in her chest. When she returned to the kitchen, she found Elias and Catherine in a similarly tense silence. "Everything all right?" Elias asked quietly as she checked the oven. "Fine." Her voice was too bright, too controlled. "Dinner's almost ready." Catherine watched them with keen eyes. "Avery, dear, would you mind if I asked you something personal?" Warning bells rang in Avery's mind. "Tired, of course not. Why did you marry my son?" The question hung in the air like suspended glass, ready to shatter. Avery's hands stilled on the oven mitts. "Mother," Elias warned. "No, it's a fair question." Avery turned to face them both, drawing from emotions she hadn't meant to access. "I married him because he sees me. Not just the strong face I show the world, but the tired woman who keeps going anyway. He doesn't try to fix my problems. He just stands beside me while I fix them myself." The truth in her words surprised her. Elias stared, something unreadable in his expression. "And," she continued softly, "because when he brought homemade soup to the shop that day, I saw him too. The man behind the perfect facade, the son who keeps his mother's favorite flowers in his office, the doctor who remembers the cafeteria worker's name." Catherine's eyes glistened. "And you, Elias, why did you marry her?" Elias stood abruptly, pacing his familiar circle. Avery's heart raced. They hadn't prepared for this question. "Because," he said finally, his voice rough, "she makes me feel human. Not Dr. Thatcher, not someone's son, just human." The timer buzzed, startling them all. Avery turned quickly to remove the pot pie, grateful for the distraction. Her hands trembled slightly as she served the plates. Dinner proceeded with lighter conversation, Catherine sharing stories of Elias's childhood, Avery describing particularly memorable flower arrangements, Elias gradually relaxing as the evening wore on. "This is exactly how I remember it," Catherine said, savoring the pot pie. "You must have practiced." "I had a good teacher," Avery replied, glancing at Elias. "Your son is very detailed in his instructions. When he chooses to share them," Catherine noted, "though he seems to share more with you than most." A knock at the door interrupted them. Elias rose to answer it, but froze at the sight of the visitor. "I'm sorry," Sage's voice carried into the dining room. "I know you're busy, but I need my sister." Avery was on her feet immediately. Sage stood in the doorway, her purple hair wild, tears streaking her face. "Mom's in the hospital," Sage said. "Alcohol poisoning. They're saying it's bad this time." The perfect dinner scene shattered. Avery moved to grab her bag, but Catherine's voice stopped her. "Go with her," she told Elias. "Both of you. Family needs family." Elias hesitated only a moment before grabbing his keys. "Which hospital?" "Mercy General," Sage replied, surprised by his immediate response. "I know the head of emergency medicine there." He helped his mother back into her wheelchair. "The home care nurse is downstairs. I'll have her take you home." "But," Avery started. "Family needs family." Elias repeated his mother's words, his hand finding Avery's lower back. All family. In the elevator, Sage watched their interaction with wary eyes. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Elias's voice was firm. Because that's what husbands do. Avery's eyes met his in the elevator's mirrored walls. In that moment, neither of them was sure if he was still acting, and somewhere between his condo and the hospital, between the perfect lie they'd crafted and the messy truth they now faced, something real began to take root. 7 days of pretense had just become something far more complicated than either of them had bargained for. Mercy General's emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos. Avery felt the familiar weight of hospital fluorescents pressing down as they approached the nurse's station. Beside her, Elias had transformed, his casual dinner demeanor replaced by professional authority. Dr. Thatcher, he introduced himself, showing his hospital ID. I need information on a patient brought in for alcohol poisoning, family member of my wife. The word wife struck Avery like a physical blow. Here, away from his mother's watchful eyes, he had no reason to maintain the pretense, yet he did. Monica Monroe, Sage supplied, her young face tight with worry. Our mother, the nurse typed quickly. She's being treated by Dr. Reynolds. I'll page him. Elias's hand found the small of Avery's back, steadying her. I know Reynolds. He's good. You don't have to stay, Avery whispered. Yeah, this isn't part of our arrangement. His eyes met hers, something fierce in their grey-blue depths. Stop telling me what I don't have to do. Dr. Reynolds arrived, looking harried but competent. Recognition flickered across his face at seeing Elias. Thatcher, what brings you to my ER? My mother-in-law, Elias replied smoothly. Monica Monroe. Understanding dawned in Reynolds' expression. Ah, yes, Mrs. Monroe is stable, but the situation is serious. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my sister, Avery insisted, pulling Sage closer. Reynolds nodded. Your mother's blood alcohol level was dangerously high. We're treating the immediate crisis, but... He hesitated, glancing at Sage. But this isn't the first time, Avery finished, and her liver is showing the damage. Yes, the scans indicate significant cirrhosis. Without immediate intervention and rehabilitation, he left the sentence unfinished. Sage's hand tightened in Avery's. Can we see her? She's sedated, but yes, short visits only. Monica Monroe lay small and pale against the hospital sheets, tubes and monitors creating a too familiar scene. Avery felt Sage trembling beside her. She looks old, Sage whispered. When did she get so old? Avery pulled her sister close, letting her hide her face like she used to as a child. Over Sage's head, she met Elias's eyes. He stood in the doorway, a silent guardian giving them space while remaining present. I need coffee, Sage announced suddenly, pulling away. And air. I'll go with... Avery started. No, Sage's voice cracked. I need a minute alone, please. After she left, Elias stepped fully into the room. His clinical gaze assessed the monitors, but his words were personal. She's right. You don't always have to be the strong one. Yes, I do. Avery sank into the chair beside her mother's bed. I have been since I was 17, since the first time we found her like this. Elias pulled another chair close and sitting beside her. Tell me. Dad left when Sage was 3. Mom held it together for a while, but then... She gestured at the hospital bed. Some people break all at once. Others break slowly, drink by drink, disappointment by disappointment. And you? I didn't have time to break. Sage needed lunches packed, homework checked, someone to cheer at school plays. She laughed hollowly. I learned to arrange flowers because the local shop gave employee discounts on food from their attached cafe. Elias's hand found hers, warm and steady. You were a child yourself. I was whatever Sage needed me to be. She stared at their joined hands. That's why this arrangement. I needed the money. For her. For some kind of stability. I know. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Just like I needed to give my mother peace before... He couldn't finish. A soft knock interrupted them. Dr. Reynolds entered with papers and a grim expression. We need to discuss treatment options, he began. Your mother needs specialized care, rehabilitation, given her history. We can't afford that, Avery said automatically. Yes, we can. Elias's voice was firm. As her son-in-law, I'm happy to— No. Avery pulled her hand from his. This isn't part of our deal. There is no deal right now. He turned to Reynolds. Send me the details and recommendations. I'll handle the arrangements. Elias, you can't— I can and I will. His tone left no room for argument. Unless you want to explain to my mother why I'm not helping my wife's family. The manipulation was subtle but effective. Avery felt tears threatening for the first time since this nightmare began. I'll leave you to discuss, Reynolds said diplomatically, setting the papers on a side table. Once alone, Avery stood and paced the small room. This is too much. The money you're already paying me isn't relevant. Elias caught her arms, stilling her. Look at me. She did, finding something raw and honest in his expression. You're right, he said softly. This isn't part of our arrangement. This is me, seeing someone He swallowed hard. Someone I care about in pain and having the means to help. I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to. His hands slid down her arms to grasp her fingers. Teus, let someone else be strong for a change. A sob broke free before she could stop it. Elias pulled her closer, and suddenly she was crying into his expensive shirt, his arms solid around her. I don't know how to need people, she whispered against his chest. Neither do I. His voice rumbled under her ear. Maybe we can learn together. The moment stretched, intimate and real, until a small sound made them separate. Sage stood in the doorway, coffee cups in hand, watching them with an unreadable expression. The nurses said she'll wake up soon, Sage said. And your mother called, twice. Reality crashed back. Catherine, the arrangement, the lies that had somehow led to this truth. I should call her, Elias said. Will you be— We'll be fine, Avery assured him. Go. But as he left the room, Sage fixed her sister with a penetrating stare. So that wasn't pretend, was it? Avery touched her cheek, still damp with tears. I don't know what it was. You're falling for him. It wasn't a question. No, Avery replied too quickly. It's just an arrangement. 7 days, remember. Right. Sage set down the coffee cups. And when those 7 days are up, what happens to Mom's treatment? To whatever's growing between you two? Avery had no answer. Outside the room, she could hear Elias talking softly on the phone, his voice carrying the same gentle tone he'd used with her moments ago. 7 days had seemed so simple at first, a straightforward exchange, her pretense for his money. But now, watching him pace the hallway, feeling the ghost of his arms around her, she realized that some performances became real the moment you stopped acting, and some hearts broke long before they admitted they were in love. 7 days. Avery stood in Elias's kitchen on the morning of the 7th day, watching dawn paint Portland's skyline in shades of promise. The now familiar coffee maker hummed to life, 6:15 a.m., precise as always. She'd already packed her small duffel bag, removed her few belongings that had scattered throughout the condo. The fake wedding ring sat heavy on her finger, waiting to be returned. Behind her, Elias's footsteps approached, different from his usual confident stride. When she turned, he stood in his surgical scrubs, looking somehow incomplete. Your coffee, she said, offering his mug. Black. No sugar, he finished. Avery, we need to talk. About the arrangement ending. Everything's taken care of. She kept her voice professional. I've removed all traces of my presence. The paperwork for my mother's rehabilitation is processed. Your mother is doing better, and she— Stop. He set down the untouched coffee. Say, that's not what we need to discuss. There's nothing else to discuss. She moved to gather her bag. The 7 days are up. The performance is over. Is it? He stepped closer. Because something changed, and we both know it. Nothing changed. She couldn't meet his eyes. We played our parts well, that's all. Really? His voice softened. So you were acting when you held my hand during Mother's last checkup, when you fell asleep against my shoulder watching that terrible medical drama, when you cried in my arms at the hospital. Each memory hit like a physical blow. Elias, don't— Were you acting? He pressed. When you told my mother why you married me, because I wasn't acting when I answered why I married you. Avery's hands trembled. This isn't fair. No, what isn't fair is pretending these 7 days meant nothing. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfect style. What isn't fair is watching you walk away when we both know this stopped being pretense days ago. It has to be pretense, she insisted. Your mother, the hospital staff, everyone thinks we're married. The truth would destroy, then let's make it truth. The words hung in the morning air like suspended starlight. Avery stared at him, heart pounding. What? Instead of answering, Elias crossed to his desk, pulling out a small box. Inside lay a ring, not the fake gold they'd been wearing, but something real, something chosen. I bought this 3 days ago, he admitted. After watching you make soup for my mother, after seeing how you handled the crisis with yours, after realizing I don't want to go back to perfect coffee at 6:15 that doesn't come from your hands. Elias, she whispered, but he continued. I know it's crazy. I know we did everything backwards, but I've spent my whole life being careful, being perfect, keeping everyone at arm's length. He stepped closer. And then you came in with your worn shoes and your quiet strength and your way of seeing right through my walls. We can't. Why not? He took her hands, and she realized he'd removed his fake ring too. Give me one reason that isn't about what other people will think. One reason that's just about us. Avery looked at their joined hands, at the marks where their fake rings had been. I'm not from your world. I have baggage, responsibilities. You have a family, he corrected. A sister who loves you fiercely. A mother who needs help healing. Those aren't baggage, Avery. They're part of who you are. This amazing woman who keeps fighting, keeps loving, keeps going. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I can't let you fix everything. I'm not trying to fix everything. He brushed away her tears. I'm asking to stand beside you while you fix what needs fixing. To be strong when you need rest. To love you not because of a contract or an arrangement, but because somewhere between fake coffee routines and real hospital vigils, I fell in love with you. A knock at the door interrupted them. They turned to find Sage and Catherine there, Catherine in her wheelchair, Sage with her purple hair pulled back neatly. Sorry, Sage said, not looking sorry at all. But if you're going to propose for real this time, you should do it with family present. How did you? Avery began. Please, Catherine interjected. I've known since the hospital. No one looks at their pretend wife the way my son looks at you. And no one holds their fake husband's hand while sleeping in uncomfortable hospital chairs, Sage added. Besides, I had to make sure he was doing this right this time. Elias laughed, a real, unguarded sound that made Avery's heart skip. I suppose I'm not as subtle as I thought. You never were, Catherine said fondly. Not with matters of the heart. He turned back to Avery, still holding her hands. They're right. This deserves to be done properly. Before she could speak, he lowered himself to one knee, still in his surgical scrubs, still gloriously imperfect. Avery Monroe, he said softly, I'm not asking you to pretend anymore. I'm asking you to be real with me, to build a life that isn't perfect but is ours, to let me love your family as my own, to share your burdens and your joys, to wake up every morning and choose each other. He held up the ring. Will you marry me? Not for 7 days, Gaz, but for all the days we have. Avery looked at Catherine, who nodded encouragingly, then at Sage, who was trying to hide her tears behind a smile. You know this means you'll never have perfectly arranged kitchen herbs again, she warned Elias. I believe in creative chaos. I'm counting on it. His eyes shone with hope. Is that a yes? Instead of answering, she pulled him to his feet and kissed him, their first real kiss, witnessed by the family they'd somehow built together. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Taz, but I'm keeping my flower shop. I wouldn't have it any other way. Later, as morning light filled the kitchen where their story began, they sat around the table, Elias, Avery, Catherine, and Sage, sharing coffee and truth and plans for a future none of them had expected. You'll need a real wedding this time, Catherine mused. Something small, but proper. With real flowers, Sage added. Since you two apparently have a thing for gardenias, Avery touched the ring on her finger, the real one, the chosen one, and felt Elias's hand cover hers. 7 days had turned into forever, and this time there was no pretense, just truth, blooming like flowers in spring, growing stronger with each passing moment, and in the end, that was the greatest plot twist of all. 1 year later, Portland rain tapped gently against the windows of Blooming Days and Heart, the newly expanded shop that now occupied a corner location in the Pearl District. Inside, Avery arranged a display of spring flowers, her real wedding ring catching the light as she worked. The shop had grown, just like everything else in her life, but she still insisted on doing the morning arrangements herself. The bell chimed as Sage burst in, her hair now a vibrant blue, carrying a stack of college brochures. NYU accepted me, full scholarship for their theater program. Avery dropped her flowers, rushing to embrace her sister. I'm so proud of you. Mom's going to freak, Sage said, then smiled. The good kind of freak. She's been doing so well in her support group, talking about making amends. One day at a time, Avery reminded her gently. The back door opened, and Elias entered carrying 2 coffee cups, one black, one with a splash of cream. He'd made it a habit to stop by the shop before his hospital rounds, though his timing had relaxed from the precise 6:15 of their early days. Did I hear something about NYU? He asked, handing Avery her coffee. Your sister-in-law's going to be a star, Avery announced proudly. New York? He raised an eyebrow. That's far from Portland Regional's cardiac unit. Good thing I have airline miles saved up, Sage teased. And a brother-in-law who's terrible at saying no to my sister. The sound of a wheelchair made them turn. Catherine navigated through the shop's wider aisles, looking healthier than she had in years. Who's terrible at saying no? Your son, apparently, Avery answered, leaning down to kiss her mother-in-law's cheek. Sound only to this family? Catherine corrected. You should see him with his residents. Still terrifies them. Not all of them, Elias protested. Just the ones who don't check patient histories properly. Speaking of histories, Catherine pulled an old photo album from her bag. I found these while cleaning. Pictures of Elias's first attempt at gardening. He killed every plant except... Let me guess, Avery smiled. But the gardenias? Some things are meant to survive, Catherine said softly, watching her son slip an arm around his wife's waist. Even when planted in unlikely soil. Sage peered at the photos. Is that the garden at your old house? The one you're renovating? The same, Elias nodded, though your sister has much bigger plans for it now. A teaching garden, Avery explained. Say for local kids, therapy groups, anyone who needs to learn about growth and patience. And second chances. Monica's voice came from the doorway. She stood straighter now, 6 months sober, holding a small pot of lavender. For the shop, from my new window box. Avery took the plant, emotion tightening her throat. Her mother's hands were steady now, her eyes clear. Small steps, but meaningful ones. Perfect timing, Elias said. We're having dinner tonight at our place, all of us. Sage's acceptance celebration, Avery added. Mom, you'll come. Wouldn't miss it. Monica smiled at Catherine. Besides, someone promised to teach me their chicken pot pie recipe. Family recipes should be shared, Catherine declared. So speaking of which, when are you two going to give me a grandchild to spoil? Mother, Elias warned, but his hand drifted to Avery's stomach in a way that made Sage's eyes narrow suspiciously. Actually, Avery began, meeting her husband's gaze with a smile, we might have some news to share at dinner. The shop filled with exclamations and hugs, joy multiplying like blooming flowers. Outside, Portland's rain continued its gentle rhythm, washing the city clean, nurturing seeds planted in both earth and hearts. Later that night, as their blended family gathered around the dinner table, Catherine sharing stories, Monica laughing softly, Sage dramatically reciting her college acceptance letter, Avery felt Elias squeeze her hand under the table. Happy, he whispered. She looked at their family, at the life they'd built from an improbable beginning, at the love that had grown from pretense into something real and lasting. Perfect, she replied, and meant it, because sometimes the most beautiful gardens grow from seeds planted by chance, watered with hope and tended with love. And sometimes the most perfect love stories start with a lie and end with a truth more wonderful than fiction could imagine. The end. Inspired by the journey of Avery and Elias, reflect, to what extent would you be able to sustain a lie for love? At some point in your life, has a lie turned into the deepest truth you've ever lived? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.